Hey tribe, and welcome back to the MLG podcast. I'm your host Mandy, and I'm here for you every Tuesday to help you live an empowered life. Now I'm really excited about today's topic. I know I say that all the time, but I mean it every time. But the reason I'm so excited about this topic today is because I think that we don't give this enough attention, and that is something that we all need to be reminded of every now and again. I believe what we feed our minds and who we surround ourselves with consistently is what and who we become. And yet, most of us are very careless about what we consume and who we allow into our sphere. Today I want to talk about the importance of what you feed your mind and who you keep in your circle, and also how to choose who to listen to. Let's get into it. The first point is the content that we consume, and I want to share with you a simple example of when I really realized how easily we are influenced. I used to love binge watching Netflix. Honestly, those were the moments I lived for. And at some point I was watching the show Suits. Now, if you don't know what Suits is, it's basically a story about a law firm with highly successful lawyers. And they all always dress very smart and fancy. I guess the name implies that. Now, I like to dress pretty casually. You will barely catch me in high heels or some kind of fancy office suit. But one morning I realized that the clothing that I was reaching toward was a bit different from my usual style. I was going toward the fancier stuff and the more professional looking things that was off from my usual style. And then I realized it's because I was drenching my mind with the series, and I got so involved and connected so deeply with the characters that subconsciously I was starting to mimic them. Now that shook me a little. It might sound stupid, but remember, I wasn't inspired by them. I didn't want to change my style. I didn't want to be like them. And yet, just through mindless observing of the series, their behavior started to impact how I thought and also how I started to behave. And this just reminded me again how extremely important it is to be selective with what we continually feed our minds. We naturally do this with kids, right? Parents are super diligent when it comes to managing the influences working on their kids. They have a keen awareness of the information they take in and the friends that they surround themselves with, and the influence that both of those have on them. But for some reason, when we become adults, we believe that we're so solid in our personalities and values that we're not that impressionable anymore. And that might be true to a certain extent, but we're definitely not immune to it. Just think about it. We all know the power of visualization, right? In fact, my hubby and I were watching the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary series on Netflix the other day, and he kept repeating how important it is to have a vision. The same with David Goggins. He constantly talks about how he could see himself as a different version of himself, and that visualization played a definitive role in the extraordinary accomplishments that he has achieved. Now, if we constantly expose ourselves to certain things, that becomes a form of visualization. And subconsciously, we start to adjust our thinking and our behavior toward that vision, even on a physical level. To give you an example of that, I've been watching a lot of videos of Laruga Glaser lately. She's an amazing yoga practitioner. And I realized that through watching her techniques and her style, I was subconsciously integrating that. And when I stepped on my mat, I started moving in a similar way to her. And that was because while I was watching her, I was imagining myself moving in that way, and that became my visualization, and I adjusted myself accordingly. So please be mindful of what you consume. I'm not saying that you're all of a sudden going to become this completely different person, but just be wise and very selective of what you feed your mind, because it will have an impact on the way you think and the way you behave. The second thing is the environment we live in, and more specifically, the people we allow into our circle. Now, there's a few things to be said about that. I get it a lot from my clients that they say, Mandy, since I've been on this personal development journey, I find that I'm struggling to connect to my friends. It's like we don't have the same interests anymore. And that's because our vibe attracts our tribe, right? How we think and what we value is often what draws a group of people together. And when your level of thinking changes, often you feel the urge to connect to new like-minded people who will understand you and challenge you and uplift you even more. Some of you might know the quote by Dan Penner. I'm always so afraid that I'm butchering these names, so sorry Dan if that was wrong. But he always says, show me your friends and I will show you your future. Who we surround ourselves with can very easily become the benchmark of what we believe is achievable and possible. If your circle is primarily made up of high achievers, that becomes the standard of what is possible and normal. And if you spend enough time with them, you will start to adjust your mindset and your actions toward that. If, on the other hand, the majority of your circle is always struggling and talking about how they can never get ahead, that will become your mindset as well, and you will start to accept those limitations and belief systems. I'm sure you've noticed, either through yourself or others, that when two people spend a lot of time together, they almost become like one person. They start to think in the same way, talk in the same way, they often adopt the same sense of humor and also adopt similar values. And I'm sure you also know that people struggling with addiction are always advised to move away from their old circles because staying there will keep them in that mindset and will draw them back into their old ways. Who we spend time with regularly influences us in a huge way because over time we start to think alike and we start to hold ourselves to the same values, standards and belief systems. I don't know who said this, but I heard one day that someone said, never be the most successful person in your circle of friends, because then there will be no one to challenge you and pull you up higher. Now, please don't hear this as me telling you to ditch all your friends who are not more successful than you. Remember, success is defined in different ways. It's not always linked to accomplishments and money. But you and I both know those people who uplift us when we spend time with them. We feel energized and inspired to become better versions of ourselves. And then there are those who make us feel negative and drained and like nothing good is possible. Now ask yourself if that friendship is serving you or whether it's maybe time to let it go. And just a side note here, it's possible and okay to let people go with love and best wishes. We all choose our own roads in life, and sometimes we've walked a path with someone and then there comes a split, and allow them to choose their direction and let them go in peace, and allow yourself to do the same. The next point is to be mindful who you take advice from. People gladly give advice and opinions in the most genuine way and with the best intentions. However, they give that based on their knowledge, their experience, and most important of all, based on their limitations and their limiting beliefs. It's always amazing to me how we are willing to take advice from those who do not have what we want to have. Choose your mentors based on evidence of success in their lives within the area that you want to succeed in, and not only because you cherish the person. One more sad but true fact about the people around you, even your family or long-standing friends, is that not everyone is going to be comfortable watching you grow and succeed. And this is because you are showing them that they also have work to do and not everyone is willing to do it. Often people love being the victim of their circumstances, and when you start showing them that it's possible to move past it, you are threatening their identity and weakening their excuses, and they're not necessarily going to like that. As they see you transform, they are either going to be inspired and want to go with you, or they're going to use subtle ways to bring you back to their level. You know, those little subtle remarks, those snarky comments about your new diet, or if you don't want to participate in a certain activity, They'll say, oh, you think you're better than us now, or playfully making fun of you. So not openly, but you can still feel that undercurrent of them not being comfortable with the change that you have gone through. Now, if you're going to stay in that circle, you're probably eventually going to give in and go back to your old ways. Or at the very least, you're going to feel like you have to hide your success from them. And this will put a cap on your ability to grow and evolve, because every time you do, you will feel guilty or almost ashamed to share it with them. Now, this is something I use as a measure of a high quality connection. Am I apprehensive to share my success, or am I excited to tell them about it? Those who I know will be truly happy for me are the ones who will allow me to grow even more. And those who don't are probably the ones that I will have to keep at a bit more of a distance. So to sum it up, I've learned through my own experience that if I read books about successful people, I start to think like them. When I watch videos about extreme athletes, then all of a sudden my mind and my body open up and I'm able to push a little harder. When my husband and I focus on the same goals, we get there a lot faster. When I see people who came from nothing and built themselves into something extraordinary, it changes my belief system, and then I start to know that it is possible for me too. My point is, feed yourself what you want to become and keep those around you who will give you the space and support to grow into that. That's it from me for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found value in this episode, and I hope that it inspired you to go and have a look at what you consume regularly and who you keep around you. And maybe it's time to make a few adjustments to put yourself on a real path to success and growth. Stay tuned for the bloopers coming up in just a second. If you like this video, you know what to do. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and most important of all, always remember to live an empowered life. I'll catch you in the next one. I'll be there now. Wait. Wait. Don't go anywhere. Hi. To way. The way I want to talk about it. Parents are super and allow yourself to choose, No, that was not good. Enjoy the bloopers. Did I say bloopers? I don't know. Did I say bloopers?